Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the love. I appreciate it. Appreciate the love anyway. Just it being out here because we need more of that. We need more of that. It's healing, and it's how we'll always be able to find a way to navigate to where we need to be with all the challenges that are definitely still ahead of us. So really, thank you, Moms for Liberty, for so many things and for inviting me here to chat with you all. That was terrific to listen to Tina earlier, and my good friend, the Lieutenant Governor, Jay Collins, always a lot of positive energy and a really brave man and just a really admirable man. So, it's I, I didn't know I'd be called up right away, so I usually do a little sort of mental prep, if you will, but it's all good. It's all good. So, 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 yeah, and it's early, right? I'm impressed that they started this early on a Friday. So, so I got a few minutes here, and I'll share a few things. So, this is awesome national convention, and I really do have a lot of appreciation, deep appreciation for Moms for Liberty. A lot of people may have heard about me during the COVID-19 pandemic after Governor DeSantis appointed me in September. In September 2021, and nonstop battles, right, with different medical organizations and the federal government and what Biden's CDC or FDA was trying to do, and all of these health officials, nonstop battles. And I will tell you, like at every important battle and just all of these events with the governor and with other people, you know who was always there? There were always people from this group, Moms for Liberty. I love those moms because they got it. They understood what was important and what was right. And, their support and their investment in these issues was absolute and crystal clear. And I really appreciated that. So I've loved Moms for Liberty from the very beginning for their stalwart support. And I'll share. I was thinking about what I would share with you all. And really briefly, especially since we have a lot of people who are from different states and may not know more about me than that really objective reporting from CNN and MSNBC. I know they're very objective, so I'll just share a little bit about really briefly. So I'm a dad and a husband. I've got 3 just amazing boys, an absolutely just amazing wife who saved my life, and she did. And I went to medical school at Harvard, and I did a PhD while I was in medical school. And prior to, I'm an internist, internal medicine physician. And prior to taking on the position of Surgeon General of Florida, I was a faculty member at UCLA in Los Angeles. And there, I took care of patients at Ronald Reagan UCLA Hospital, and I did research. So I had multiple NIH grants. This was all pre-COVID, when I was still a normal professor and physician. And it was during the COVID-19 pandemic. I actually happened to be working in the hospital in March of 2020 when Governor Newsom shut down the state. I was working in the hospital. I took care of some patients with COVID that week, and I saw the pandemonium, and I saw the fear, and I saw how the fear was engulfing and leading people to make bad decisions, and I started writing, and that's sort of where things started. When I started writing, and I wrote for USA Today, and then I wrote for Wall Street Journal and a bunch of other articles, and did a bunch of other things, and eventually got the phone call from Governor DeSantis' office. So apparently I'm over time, so I will take one more minute just to say something that I think is really important. And what I want to share is that part of the reason that this group is so important is because of this group's relationship with families and the energy of the family. And what do I mean by the energy of the family? I mean that when you have, and I know that there's so many challenges. I myself, I work every single day to be a better dad and a better husband. And I've made a lot of progress, but I'm still working at it. But the energy of that human, intimate relationship with your husband, with your wife, with your spouse, and with your children, and with your investment in their future and their safety and their development, and your care and your nurture for them, there's perfection in that. And as imperfect as that entity is, and all the challenges and all the work that we do to make it better, as imperfect as it is, it will always have a better connection to what we need as human beings, what we need as people to create and maintain an environment where the human being remains the most important thing. It will always be more perfect than whatever government is dictating should be the direction of human beings and humanity. That's the most important value. It is the family and the energy of the family that will preserve us as challenges continue. Artificial intelligence, it is the energy, the intuitive voice that the family, that we're able to find in that dynamic that will direct us, that let you know before, it didn't matter what leaders or health officials or doctors were saying, to let you know that it's wrong for boys to think they're girls and girls to think they're boys. It's wrong for people to encourage that. It's wrong. It's wrong to be throwing sexual energy in the life of children. It's wrong for governments or other entities to have more say over the health and the nurture of your child than you do. And it's wrong for artificial intelligence to supplant the what it means to be human. So anyway, that energy, it's part of the reason this organization is so important, and it's frankly what has saved us, and it's what will continue to save us as a human race. So, all right, thanks.
Well, is that on? There we go. Dr. Ladapo.
Hey.
I am so excited about this. We've never met before today, but I'm a huge fan, and I know many of our moms here are huge fans. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
They're actually raising their hands and yelling, I am. So for those from other states, you may not know, I'm sure you've seen in the news, that you were responsible for removing vaccine mandates in schools recently. These are your people.
Yeah.
Why? Like, yeah. Like, I mean, all the questions. Why? Yeah. I mean, we know why, but it's nice to put it on the record. Yeah. Why? And the backlash from that. How do you sustain that? And is it worth it? And what's the purpose? Are kids still protected in schools? All the things. Let's hear what you have to say.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So we are working on it. So we have, on the technical side, which is the boring side, we have some vaccines that we mandate. I'm the head of the Department of Health here in Florida, and we have some vaccines that we mandate through the department. I didn't do it, obviously. It was a predecessor who did that. And we've initiated the process to remove those vaccine mandates. But yeah, absolutely. So those are going to be gone. And then there are others that are in Florida statute. So we're working on removing those, and we're going to need the cooperation of our lawmakers, and to be able to do those. And so we're working on that too, and we appreciate all the help you can give us, by the way, on that. And I mean, it's very interesting. I've never been fond of mandates anyway, like just in general. But in this, yeah, I mean, who wants, eh, but in this particular case, it's it is simply, it is very simply the right thing to do, because it is wrong. It is absolutely wrong for a government or anyone to tell you what you must put in your body. God. It's absolutely wrong. That's not complicated, guys. That is not complicated. I mean, that is a very, very simple one. Sometimes I say that, what does God send us here to this planet with? Like, he sends us with our free will, and it's all wrapped up in our souls and all that good stuff. And he sends us with our bodies. Like, literally, those are the two things we come on this earth with, and they're the two things we leave with. And there's so much we can't control, but if you cannot control what is put into your body, or what is, or what is put into your, what you think and what you do and all that stuff, I mean, you must be able to control that. And unfortunately, the governments have normalized this idea that, well, no, you actually can't control that. I actually control that. And I say that you have to put these things into your body. And it's just wrong. It's morally wrong. And I get that people want, no one wants a lot of people getting sick and things like that, although there's controversy there in terms of, different benefits and risks of the different vaccines. But that's a fine goal to have, but you must achieve it in an honest, ethical way. You cannot shortcut it by basically taking away people's ability to control what enters their body. So it's, we're going to keep drumming that. We're going to keep drumming that message, and just here's hoping that we're able to fully accomplish it.
So what role should the government, if any at all, in your opinion, play in public health and health? And that, I mean, from the federal government, the state government, and even local government for that matter, because what we saw during COVID obviously was, for us, an unacceptable level of government control in health, and obviously for you. So where is that healthy balance?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I would say that part of the answer to that actually relates to what I was talking about in terms of the energy of the family, and what that allows is sort of insight, if you will, and intuition, right? So so that is a question for judgment. So clearly, there's a practical answer, and we're doing that in Florida, for example. So on a practical basis, well, in general, right, you provide resources, and we do that here in Florida. We make a bunch of different vaccines available, except for the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, which no one should be taking. And believe me, there's even going to be, we've already had a lot of bad news with those vaccines, and unfortunately, more is coming. So providing resources, providing information, we do that here in the Florida Department of Health. Providing testing, providing education, we do all of those things. We had some kids in South Florida who had measles in a school. And here's an example of where applying judgment is important. So people were hampering for us to exclude the kids who didn't have a measles vaccine or prior immunity from prior measles infection from coming to school. And I said, and Governor DeSantis said, no, we'll let the parents decide. Why? Because families that have, families and kids that are already immune, I mean, that's an option, right? The vaccine is an option. So they really have no concerns. That happens to be one that's more effective for, prevention of infection. And then for parents who, whose kids may not have taken the measles vaccine, they're not sick. So let them decide. And so we leaned on the side of parental rights, and I felt like that was where we needed to be. Pretty much every other state, they would have excluded the kids from school. And, and again, this is why judgment matters. Putting more power
into the hands of parents, putting more personal responsibility into the hands of parents and families, that is the right place to be, right? The other way is not so good.
So I think you guys submitted like 100 and something questions for him, and we literally have 10 minutes. It's unfortunate. I think we could have had a whole day with Dr. Ladapo, and this question isn't even on here, but we talked about it backstage a little bit, and I think it's important because why are more doctors not like you? Where did you get, where did this deep sense of liberty and understanding the fundamental God-given rights come from, and how, where does that come from? How do you rely on that? And I know you can't really answer why more doctors aren't like you, but maybe you can. I would really appreciate it if you'd address that.
Yeah, sure thing. So, so for me, there are two things. I think, people have, one piece is what your natural endowment is, if you will. And so, for example, my wife is naturally endowed with just profound intuition. Like, I'm sitting here right now, I've been able to accomplish the things that I've been able to accomplish because of her intuition. Like, there's so many things where she's given me direction, given me insights that I was not able to intuit or to see or to otherwise know or become conscious of myself. That's one of her just natural endowments from God. One of my natural endowments, and she's a very freedom-loving woman naturally, one of my natural endowments is liberty. Like, it courses through me, and God just happened to endow me with that. The other piece is really, I would say, God's plan. So before I met my wife, I was sharing with Tina, I had a lot of problems, guys. And my problems weren't, so my problems, I was already in medical school and, I was pursuing my PhD and all that stuff. So my problems weren't sort of externally obvious, right? Because it looks like here's a young man, I was an athlete in college, he's successful, he's doing well educationally, all this stuff. But internally, I was a huge mess, ladies and gentlemen. I was a huge mess. And I was a huge mess because of a traumatic experience I had when I was a little kid, and just how all the other experiences of trauma and stress and tension, which we all experience to different degrees and in different quantities and qualities, experience throughout our lives. And all of that had created someone who was paralyzed by fear internally and literally swam in the frequency of fear as a way of life. And that's who I was before I met my wife. And, just by chance, I fell in love with my wife accidentally. Literally, we met on a plane. She was going to LA. I was going to Boston for school. We talked for the entire plane ride, ended up exchanging information, ended up having conversations with her. Eventually I would talk, I'd be on the phone with her for 8 hours. The sun would come up in Boston, and I fell in love with her. It was completely accidental, and it was God's plan, and it had to happen that way because I was too unhealthy internally to ever have sort of consciously sort of fallen in love with her, if that makes sense to some of the people here. And that was the beginning of my path to healing. And my wife helped me, and eventually she got me to a guy named Christopher Maher, who's he's a Navy SEAL, he's out in Los Angeles, and he also is a gifted healer. And he helped me address through techniques from Chinese medicine and other techniques, the trauma and the stress and the tension that I carried inside of me, and that was literally strangling my being, my spiritual being, my energetic being, my physical being, my mental being. And I got to get free during that time. I worked with him for 5 days, and I had a miracle. In fact, I had a miracle every day I worked with him. And that was in December of 2019. And of course, the pandemic was a few months after that. So I got to shed tremendous amounts of stress and tension and trauma. And I got to be free of the fear that was, that I was locked up in. And, what does a free being do? A free being says what he or she believes is right. A free being, is more connected to divinity, right? And the messages and the information that God is providing us, right? A free being is more able to, connect with other people and with him or herself, and to have self-honesty and things like that. And we all have that in us. It's just how much access we have to it that is the question. And so between the liberty and the gift of my wife and Christopher Maher, it was like not hard to see all the nonsense and the evil that was happening during the pandemic and call it out.
So he told me that story backstage, some of it. You didn't tell me about your wife and the meeting, but I thought that was important for you all to hear, because you can see how God prepared him to stand up during COVID. And Florida really did lead, and other states started falling in line after what you and Governor DeSantis did here in Florida. And so I just think it speaks to what a lot of you go through in this room with your trials and your tribulations, and what you have to overcome, how you have to grow spiritually. You have to shed the fear before you're able to speak up and stand out. And you're such a great representation of that. And so thank you for what you've done. I do want to get into a couple policy type things, because we're also very interested in the work that you do. And one of the concerns we have across the country are these school-based health centers. And yeah, does that belong in schools, sir? Yeah. And at what capacity does that belong in schools? Take it away.
Yeah, so as little as possible. And, and I would say there are probably some schools that are capable of that, but those would in general be home schools, right? Yeah, and the care and the nurture of our children, so that they are able to be to be individuals with agency, right? It's so important. Literally, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, literally the future of our human race depends on it. Why does it depend on it? Because in the absence of that, you will have, sheep-like beings that will be led to the slaughter of artificial intelligence doing this, or enrollment in that bad policy, or whatever it is that will diminish and weaken what we are as humans. And we are powerful creator beings. We are made in God's image. We are extremely powerful. All of these forces are, they diminish who we are as human beings. And you need children who are strong enough and know themselves well enough and know the difference between right and wrong well enough, intuitively, instinctively, to be able to say, no, that's wrong. I don't care how much easier it makes life. I don't care why, this scientist said that this is the best thing to do, I don't care, why the doctors say this is what we must do to kind of make it through. It's wrong. And it takes individuals who have been nurtured in a way to, have that connection with themselves, to God, to divinity, to right and wrong, to be able to stand up to that. And so, no, those things don't belong in regular schools, because you can't do it in regular schools. It happens in the energy of the family.
Okay, one more question. Parents are very concerned right now about the tracking that's going on with student health data, vaccine tracking, for obvious reasons. Is there anything they can do? I mean, most of us here, I think, are probably not from Florida, or at least more than half the room. So what can they do to advocate in their states, in their schools, local communities, in the legislatures in their states, or any advice here on how to protect our students' data, or their health data?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, data, I assume there's basically no privacy anymore. Like, I assume everything I write or say, privately will eventually come out if someone wants it to come out. I think that, I think we need to be thoughtful about what we share. In Florida, we actually have, for some of our systems, we have an opt-out. So families can opt out, and I think it's important to give families that option. At the same time, I think it's also just important to have really good leaders. Because for us in Florida, we, for example, have data on different vaccines and who takes them and things like that. But I'm actually very grateful for that data because we're using it right now to do very important work related to the COVID-19 vaccines. And so I'm grateful for that data. I respect people's right to opt out of it. But really having leaders that are going to be thoughtful about that and be respectful of people's privacy, I think is maybe the most important thing.
I love that. So elect good people.
Yeah.
So knock more doors.
Yeah.
That's what we hear. All right, our time is up, but I'm going to give you the last closing statement here. Like your message to, we've got 130,000 moms across the country that are going to tune in at some point. If they're not here in the room, they're watching from home, or they're going to see this video later. What would you say to them? They are in a place right now in many states like California and New York where they don't even have the right to send their kid to public school unless they put injections into their children's bodies that they are against. Like some of these people are in really bad situations. What would you say to them?
Honestly, I really do feel for people who are, we saw it during the COVID-19 pandemic where this evil energy would force people to choose between feeding their families and putting something in their bodies that they didn't want. Just the worst type of coercion. And make no mistake, it is absolutely evil. That's where that comes from. And I really do feel bad for, and for people who were injured by the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. And, I really do feel bad, terrible for people who, who are put in these situations. And I think what I would say is that, we often don't understand why God puts us in particular situations, why God puts different challenges, some of which feel tremendous and overwhelming in our path and for us to deal with. But, I would say that whether it's, blue skies or whether it's just very difficult circumstances, I think it's just so important to really hold on and preserve your sovereignty and your beliefs, and and just honestly, no matter what, and and I think that sometimes providence moves in those situations, right? People hear about what's going on, they find a way to help, or you inspire someone and they find a way to take action, or something else happens. But I think it's just when people are in those difficult and sometimes overwhelming situations, what we have here is not everything, right? There's life in our souls. It's eternal. Like there's way more to the world than what we have here in this physical plane, and doing right in this physical plane, pursuing right action in this physical plane, it is worth it. No matter what the cost is in this physical plane. I mean, as much as possible. I think that that's a good kind of guiding light, certainly for our souls and for the health of our souls.
All right, let's give Dr. Ladapo a round of applause. Thank you, sir, for your time. Appreciate you so very much. Thank you.